life is just what's happening. Well, what the teachings tell us is the direct way, the direct path to dealing with that, not just in terms of something distracting you when you're practicing meditation, but something's distracting you all the time, not just when you're practicing meditation. And that which is distracting you all the time is this activity that we call thinking. What's it distracting you from? It's distracting you from reality. It's what it's distracting you from. And the reality is just what's happening. It's just what's happening. And there's nothing happening that's wrong. That is a revelation, right, to most people. What do you mean there's nothing happening that's wrong? Don't you watch the news? Or I'll tell you what's wrong, I'll tell you my story, then you'll find out something's wrong, right? But all of that is being generated in the thought process all the time. And we don't know the difference between that world and the real world. We don't know that. We think that is the real world. We think the real world is a world in which there's suffering, a world in which there's a lot wrong, a world in which there's a lot that should be different than it is. So, this is a predicament that we find ourselves in. And so I want to talk a little bit about that in terms of one of the people who is considered one of the greatest teachers of our time, this Indian guy named Ramana Maharshi. One of the things he said in terms of describing the predicament is he said there's a presupposed, now this I want you to remember this because this is the whole teaching in one statement, right? You could just study this and that would be sufficient, right? There's a presupposed non-existent being seeking freedom and liberation for that non-existent being, right? So this presupposed non-existent being, that would be you, right? And you're seeking freedom and liberation from that non-existent being. So you're seeking freedom and liberation for yourself, that non-existent being, right? Now don't try and think about this. If you try and think about this, it'll just make you crazy, right? But you don't have to think about this, you can just see it. That's the direct experience of it. You can just see what I'm pointing at instead of thinking that you have to figure it out and understand it. If you just get what I'm saying, right, it can open up a whole possibility, right?
How can we get it if we don't think about it?
Well, rather than answer your question, what I would recommend that you do is just see if that's possible. Allow what I'm saying to come in, right? There may be thoughts that occur, right? But don't reference that, right? Don't reference that, right? If I say blue, just get blue. This is the failure in communicating about this. If I say blue, just get blue. The mind has a lot of difficulty just getting anything. The mind will have blue, oh, that's not my favorite color. The mind will have blue, and then it will have a statement about blue. It judges and evaluates everything, right? So if you want to get the teaching, you have to get it, not think about it, right? You have to look at what I'm pointing to, right? Not try and understand it, right? It's there to be recognized, right? The awareness has the ability to know. We don't trust it because we're so used to being in the habit of the thought process that we just automatically go to thinking, right? When in reality, right now, although you may not think it, right now, the awareness that you are is aware of this room. And you're not thinking about that, are you? No. So there's evidence available to you that the awareness that you are can know. It's just it can be in a natural state of seeing and knowing without thinking about it. And as a matter of fact, if you practice that, and what we're doing in meditation is exactly that, practicing that, right? We're depriving the mind of its occupying our attention. We're depriving the thought process of it being what we identify with and what we use to live our lives. We're depriving it of that by pulling attention away from it, right, and focus on something else. We use the breath because it's available, and the breath is always occurring in the present moment, right? But as my teacher said the other night when he was talking about this, he said that don't get stuck on that. Don't turn that into some magic. No, we're using the breath, but eventually if you stay with these teachings and practices, you will come to recognize that what we're talking about here is pay attention to what's happening instead of what you think about it. Notice that that's possible, that you can be here, you can be aware of being here, you can know here, you can know what here is, and you can relax here, right? You can relax here, right? You can let everything be as it is here, right? And then you can notice that that's very peaceful. That's satisfying. That's satisfying, that's peaceful. Actually, you can actually feel happy. Why? For no reason. You can actually feel happy just because the experience that you're having without thinking and without trying, right? And without identifying with the idea that you're this body and they're this personality, without doing any of that and just allowing yourself to be present, you can begin to notice, oh, this is what it's like to be me. Oh, this is what it's like to be alive. Oh, this is what it's like to be awake. And it's available all the time, right? So if I go back to that statement that Ramana Maharshi made when he said that the predicament that we're in is there is this presupposed non-existent self or being or person, whatever you want to call it, right? Presupposed non-existent. Very important to understand, non-existent means it's not real. It's a dream, it's an illusion, it doesn't actually exist. There's this presupposed non-existent being or person or self that seeks freedom or seeks liberation or seeks happiness, right, for that non-existent self. Now, the thing that's important to get about this, right, you don't have to understand it, the thing that's important to get about this is if the being, and it's referring to you, by the way, if the being that you consider yourself to be is non-existent, and that being is seeking liberation, satisfaction, or happiness for itself, how possible is it that that's going to happen? Never. It's an impossible reality because if you don't exist, you can't do anything. You can't make anything happen. And one of my teachers made a statement about this, and he said, here's the clue to understanding that statement, right? The clue to understanding that statement is you don't have to get out of something you're not really in. If you're not that self, if you're being a non-existent self that's being generated by thinking, right? And that's not true, do you have to get out of it? No, because you're not in it. If you're not in it, then why does it occur to you that you are in it? That's how it all shows up, doesn't it? Your conditioning occurs in thinking, right? Your identity occurs in thinking. If I ask you who you are, you tell me what you think. You have no alternative but to tell me what you think. And it's important for you to understand that you're thinking that you're this non-existent being, and when you're in the thought world that gives you, you're pursuing happiness. Now, I've already said that pursuit of happiness is an impossibility because the one pursuing it doesn't even exist. It's an impossible reality. Can you see that if you take that understanding and you look at the world, right? That's what's happening. Everybody's chasing an impossible dream. Everybody's pursuing happiness. Everybody's trying to get peaceful. Everybody's trying to be satisfied, right? It's all around, right? And there's an unlimited number of ways that you can do that, right? None of which will work. None of which will work. So the first thing you want to understand if you want to walk the path of the truth, right, is that what the herd's doing, what the flock's doing, isn't working, and it will never work. It can't work. It's an impossibility. You can't experience reality in a dream. It's not possible. You can't experience reality in a dream. Right? When you go to sleep at night, right, the body goes to sleep. You go to sleep, right? You're asleep. You're not present. You're sleeping, right? And then while you're sleeping, you start dreaming, right? And when you're dreaming, you're seeing yourself in a world, in a reality, doing things, interacting with people, having feelings, having conversations, right? Doing things, right? In the dream, right? And then you wake up, right? And you say, oh, that was just a dream, right? So here's a way of kind of seeing into what's really going on, right? When you're dreaming at night, you're sleeping, right? But even though you're sleeping, there is a you in a dream that's doing things, right? But you're sleeping. You're sleeping. So who's watching the dream? Who's experiencing the dream? You're sleeping, right? Then you wake up and you say, oh, that was just a dream. Now this is real. That was just a dream, right? That was just being generated by my mind, right? And I imagined that I was in that dream, but it wasn't true because I woke up and then I realized, oh, this is the real thing and that was a dream, right? This discovery can eliminate the need for psychotherapy. You know?
Put you out of business.
I don't want to be in that business. The only reason I keep practicing psychotherapy is so I can introduce an alternative to people, right? You come to me as a person. You come to me as a presupposed non-existent being. You come to me as a presupposed non-existent being, and you want me to help you accomplish something that's impossible. So my job is to help you realize the impossibility of that, and to give you the opportunity to discover the truth, to discover what is possible. What is possible is to be what you actually are and not who you think you are. Well, what is it? What is who I actually am? Well, practice being away from the thinking activity for a while, and you might stumble on it because it's here all the time, right? Now watch, who you think you are, the habit of being who you think you are, which is what you're practicing 24/7, right? You being who you think you are cannot wake up. You being who you think you are can never experience happiness. Never. It's not possible. Wait a minute. You who you think you are can never do that, right? It's hopeless. It's hopeless. Hopeless. And you can't do anything but try to do it, can you? You can never do it, and you can't do anything but try to do it. And that's never going to work. So what are we wasting our time on here? We're not really wasting our time, because the answer is that if you, who is non-existent, tries to do it, and the way you're trying to do it is to relax the physical body and calm the mind, right? And move your attention away from that activity, right? Just by doing that, even though you can't do it, you can't accomplish it, right? By doing that, right? You're less identified with and less being what you're not when you're practicing that. You're less identified with your thoughts, and you're less being what you're not when you're practicing that. And because you're less being what you're not, what you are has a chance to populate your experience. What you are has a chance to come to you. You can't go to it because you don't exist. It can come to you because it's always there, right? And when you slow down and relax and calm your mind, you become available to it. It's like that. You become available to it. So then what you do, because you start to get the idea, it starts to sink in, right? Then what you do is you start practicing as you're living your life to stop relying on thinking and stop relying on how you feel. How's it worked out for you to do that? How has it worked out so far to rely on thinking and emotion and how you feel to live your life? Be honest about it. How has that worked out? It's like, you know, when I was a kid, my mother used to take me to a little thing in the park where they had kiddie rides, you know, and you get in the fire engine, you know, and you get in the fire engine, or you get in the boat, right, and it has a steering wheel, and you think when the boat turns, you're turning the boat, you know. But when you grow up, you realize, oh, that's just that's kid stuff. It's kid stuff. You still think it's true. You still think you have free will. You still think you're making things happen. You still think you're doing things. One of the things that comes along with the wake up, one of the things that comes along with the realization that's possible through these practices is you come to realize you never did anything. You can't do anything. That's impossible. It goes back to the statement that I made.
If we can control things, that's my problem.
Yeah, well, it's only your problem. It's only your problem because you keep thinking it and believing the thoughts. It's just that simple. You keep thinking it and believing the thoughts, right? But don't worry, you're not alone. There's about 8 billion other people that are doing the same thing, and it's not working for any of them. Watch the news, right? This is an unworkable situation. It can't possibly work. If you're serious about what you say you want in terms of being happy, satisfied, and peaceful, right, then you've got to start practicing seeing things as they are, which means get out of your head, which means stop relying on the thought process to tell you what is real. What is real doesn't need to be thought of to be seen as real. What is real does not need to be thought of to be seen as real. You don't have to get out of something you're not in, right? But the reason that you think you have to get out of it is because you think you're in it. The reason you think you have to change is because you think you're something that you're not, and the only possibility for that which you're not to have what it wants is to do something to get it, to change to get it, to control to get it, right? And you've been doing that. We've all been doing that, right? You know, you've been improving. You've been trying to improve your personality. You've been trying to make more money so you could be happy. Because in the world of thought, the way the world of thought tells us reality is, it tells us if you want to be happy, happiness is a function of getting what you want. That's why you want this, right? Happiness is a function of getting what you want. That's why you want what I'm talking about. Because, oh, that's what happiness is? I want that. I want that. How am I going to get that? Tell me what to do to get that, right? Well, this process takes some time because I have to wear you out. I have to wear that out. I have to wear that out of you. I have to get that out of you. I have to get you to surrender and realize there is no possibility of getting what you already have. There's no possibility of being what you already are. No possibility. That's why if you relax and calm down, right, it might just happen because it's already the case. The other night, when I was in a talk that my Zen master was giving, one of the students there asked him a question, and the question he asked him, he was asking him to clarify certain concepts that come from Buddhism. He was talking about the skandhas. Do you remember this?
Right, the 5 aggregates you referred to.
Yeah, 5 skandhas. Do you remember what David said about that?
I don't recall.
He said, you really don't have to look at that stuff. He said, that's like taking a poop and then looking in the toilet and counting which turds are 2 inches and which turds are 1 inch. That's true. That's what he said. That's a very powerful statement. Probably not many people got that. What he was trying to say is you can conceptualize this stuff, but what it is not those concepts. And if you get into conceptualizing this stuff, if you get into studying all the text and the teachings and the concepts, you know, in Buddhism or Taoism or Christianity, it doesn't matter, Judaism, right? That's all thought out stuff about this. And this is not that. So there's a danger. You know, I was listening to a Zen master being interviewed, and this Zen master was somebody who had been to Japan, was trained by famous Zen masters, and then came back to this country and is running a Zen center and training people and all. I was listening to her be interviewed, and she was talking about all of the difficult training that she had been through. It's incredible, some of the stuff that people put themselves through. And then she was talking about the teachings, you know, and all of the details of the concepts about the teachings, right? And they mentioned this book in the thing, and one of the people talking said, oh, that book is probably the best book on Zen there is. So I got the book. I'm looking at the book. It took me about 2 minutes to look at the book and realize that's a waste of my time. The whole book was all these very complicated conceptual ideas, right? And the way I see things at this point is that I'm not going to put all that shit in my head and try and think that that's going to give me something. That's just stuff that people made up, concepts that people made up about this, and that can just complicate things, right? Because what I'm talking about is immediately available as a direct experience, right? And if you get involved in all these teachings and you think the teachings, see, that's the non-existent self trying to realize freedom. You see that? What will it do? It will practice more meditation. It'll go on retreats. It'll study the teachings. It'll learn to speak the Tibetan language, right? It'll have secret handshakes. It'll do all this, right? And one of the reasons I love my Zen teacher is because he ain't into any of that. Even though he comes from a tradition that was that way, his teacher, who was a traditional Zen master, had the robes and all the formalities and the traditions, right? But my teacher, he considers himself sloppy Zen. You know, if you go to his Zen center, it's not like other Zen centers where everything is exactly perfect, you know, and everybody's got the costume on and everybody's behaving a certain way. You know, you look at my Zen teacher, he's wearing like rags and he's sitting in an empty room and he's just talking. He's talking like regular talk. He's not talking mystical talk. He's not, you know. So that's what he meant when he said, you know, you can get into that stuff, but I don't recommend it. You know, I recommend that you follow what Zen was originally about, which is not religious and non-conceptual. What was Zen it was originally about is sitting still and being silent and allowing yourself to be available to the truth. That's what it's about. Zazen, Zen, the word Zen means meditation. Meditation. And meditation, the practice of meditation is sitting still in silence and being receptive. Not allowing the thinking activity to continue to dominate the experience you're having. Just noticing the breath, allowing the breath to breathe normally. You're not even seeing your thoughts for what they are. You're just being. You're just being. He said, if you want to walk the path, you start asking that question.
Right.
Don't just tell me you don't understand what I'm saying. Find out for yourself where your thoughts are coming from. Find out for yourself who you are. Do an inquiry about it, right? Find out for yourself. Look for yourself, right? Then you will be in an actual reality of awareness. You will be in an actual reality of being present in a way where you can see the truth. And what you'll see when you look, if you look, right, is there is nobody home. There is nobody there. There is no thinker. The thinker itself is a thought. The thinker itself is a thought, right? If you remove that, what's left? What's there? You know, we learn through indoctrination and through conditioning, right, that we're here behind these eyes looking, we're here behind these ears hearing, right? Well, do an inquiry about that. Actually allow yourself to pay attention in such a way where you're asking who's looking, who's thinking. But that system is a mechanism. It's a mechanism. It's not alive. Doesn't have awareness, right? And because it's a mechanism, it's limited, and the data it's using to do what it does is limited, and the process that it's using to produce the experience, right? That process that it's using to produce an experience is happening by itself. You're not doing it. You never did it. You can't do it. It's happening by itself. You don't have to disable the program. That's not possible. You don't have to stop thinking. That's not possible. All you have to do is start being and realizing it's in the being where happiness is, not in the thinking. You know, to experience the existence of your awareness itself that is already complete, is already fulfilled, is already peaceful, is already happy, right? That's where the success is. It's in the being. So all you have to do is begin to recognize being. Begin to recognize that what actually exists is awareness, not an identity, not a physical body. And as long as you're attached to and you believe in the lie, stop the lie, stop. Makes me think of the presidential election. As long as you believe in the lie, right, then your life will involve suffering because you're operating from a place that doesn't exist. So all you have to do is pay attention in such a way where you move your attention out of that activity, right? You move your attention out of activity and then see what's there. See what's there. Now, the thing that happens for most people is they get a little scared. Well, if I let go of my identity, right, maybe I'll disappear, maybe I'll die, maybe my heart will stop, right? Everybody's afraid of the unknown. Everybody's afraid of the emptiness, right? Everybody's afraid of nothing. Everybody's afraid of nothing, right? Well, watch this. You're afraid of nothing, but if you allow yourself to actually let go and experience that nothing, and it feels good and relaxed and peaceful and happy and satisfied, maybe you'll start to become friends with it and realize there's nothing to be afraid of about nothing. There's nothing to be afraid of about nothing. And you may discover that nothing is you. You are not a thing. You are an alive experience of awareness that is already fulfilled and satisfied. But in order to have that experience, right, you have to get out of the predicament. You have to get out of continuing to be a non-existent person attempting to get happiness for that non-existent person. Yeah. It's not true that people experience moments of happiness. I already told you that's impossible.
There's no hope.
People do not experience happiness. You have never experienced happiness, and if you did, it was during a period of time when you were not being who you think you are. It was an accident. If it ever happened, it was an accident. Other than that, what you think is happiness is gratification. Because you think happiness is a function of getting what you want. So when you get what you want and you're gratified, you call that happiness. Even that doesn't last long. And that's not happiness. Happiness is an experience of your existence. It's not something you get. It's not something you can pursue. It's what you are. You are happiness. The awareness that you are is happiness. Why? Because it's fulfilled. It doesn't need anything. It's satisfied all the time. It's at peace all the time. And when you practice meditation, you'll start to get moments of that. You'll start to get a flash of it. It'll feel good. It'll feel fulfilled. It's an indescribable experience because it's non-conceptual. And you don't have to learn anything. You don't have to know anything to experience it. You've been experiencing it since you took your first breath. And then you separated from the experience and said, no, I am this body. No, I am this personality. And I'm going to, as this body and personality, I'm going to pursue happiness. I'm going to fulfill on the possibility. And I know it exists. This is the interesting thing. The reason people chase it is because they know it exists. It's ironic. The reason they know it exists is because they are it and they're looking for it. If you practice these teachings and do these practices, what you'll discover is there is no circumstance that can have an effect on you. None. None. And there never has been a circumstance that's had an effect on you. The only thing that is affected by circumstances is what you think, not the circumstance. The circumstance doesn't bother you. You can be, right now, if you allow yourself to look at if you allow yourself to be present to what's happening without referring to thought, if you do that, you will see there is nothing wrong here. Do it. Do it. Don't just believe what I'm saying. Do it. See if you can allow yourself to be aware of what's happening right now without referring to thought, without referring to feelings. Just be aware of what's happening right now. If you actually do that, you'll see there's no problem, there's nothing wrong. There can't be because you're not thinking about anything. It's what you think that's torturing you, not what's happening. It's how you feel what's torturing you, not what's happening. And when the feelings are uncomfortable, you think they shouldn't be happening. So you're denying reality. All right, I think I've caused enough trouble for you today.